Hello everybody and welcome to the PegEx podcast. Today we're talking about the training requirements for hazmat treatment, storage, and disposal facilities, known as TSDFs. One of the imperatives of the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act is that hazardous waste generators are responsible for any hazardous waste they generate from cradle to grave, including its subsequent transportation, treatment, storage, and disposal. The final stage in this cradle-to-grave concept is the place where the hazardous waste will ultimately be laid to rest, so to speak. This must be an approved treatment, storage, and disposal facility, or TSDF in EPA parlance. The RCRA makes it remarkably easy to be a hazardous waste generator. For example, the moment you uncork a can of solvent and use it, you've joined the ranks. True, you might only generate a single quart of the waste a week, but the improper storage or disposal of even a small amount can land you squarely in the crosshairs of the EPA, which is not a good place to be. Thus, one might ask, what does it take to get legally certified as a TSDF, especially if one has a pile of amorphous ooze festering on site that some EPA inspector might decide is hazardous waste illegally stored and imminently finable? The EPA defines any site where hazardous waste is intentionally placed as a disposal facility, and therefore it must comply with a long list of standards, especially if such waste will remain there forever, like after your industrial widget factory has been converted to condos. Here's how the EPA defines it. A facility includes all contiguous land, structures, and appurtenances. Yeah, we had to look that one up too. It basically means accessories, trimmings, or bits and pieces. Anyway, on or in the land used for treating, storing, or disposing of hazardous waste. Treatment is any method, technique, or process designed to change the physical, chemical, or biological character or composition of any hazardous waste. Disposal is the discharge, deposit, injection, dumping, spilling, leaking, or placing of any solid or hazardous waste on or in the land or water. The EPA itself advises that, quote, regulations pertaining to TSDFs are more stringent than those that apply to generators or transporters, end quote. Such regulations include general good housekeeping standards for all facilities, but also specific standards depending on your particular kind of waste and operation. In sum, your perfectly legal procedures for handling hazardous waste might not meet EPA standards for its storage. You need to be aware of what captures the interest of the EPA in determining if you are operating as a hazardous waste storage facility, know it or not. Again, this is not a comprehensive list, but among other things, the EPA lists air admissions. To determine any presence of volatile organic compounds, known as VOCs, your ventilation, waste treatment processes, and equipment will be inspected along with your storage impoundments, tanks, and containers. Then there's groundwater. The EPA is particularly pricky about groundwater contamination, as well they should be. Thus, a storage facility is required to have monitoring wells that regularly sample groundwater. You do have monitoring wells, don't you? Then there's financial assurance. A storage facility must prove it has the financial wherewithal to respond adequately to an accidental spill or release, and or cease operations while maintaining financial viability temporarily to do so. Given all that, it's obviously important to know what kinds and amounts of personal training the EPA demands for your TSDF hazardous waste management team. While the academic requirements to become a hazardous waste manager vary across employers, in virtually all cases, the minimum educational prerequisite is an undergraduate degree. Pick among chemistry, biochemistry, ecoscience, environmental engineering, waste management, or toxicology degrees. Art history majors need not apply. But sheepskin or not, the person you have in charge of disposing hazardous waste must have job-specific training about how to handle and remove chemical, biohazard, and radioactive wastes safely. Typical chemical disposal coursework includes Workplace Hazards Management Information Systems training, instruction about workplace emergencies involving hydrogen sulfide gas, and training about the transportation of dangerous goods. Thus, in all things involving hazardous waste management and the EPA, getting expert advice in advance of selecting your on-site hazardous waste manager is crucial. The Resource Conservation and Recovery Act requires that your facility personnel be certified to, quote, perform their duties in a way that ensures the facility's compliance with hazardous waste regulations. Yearly recertification is required and includes, but is not limited to, in general, refresher coursework including updates on differentiating solid waste from hazardous waste, understanding waste codes, disposal options, and land ban requirements, determining your generator status, satellite accumulation versus permanent storage, container requirements, facility standards, and record keeping. As to differentiating among wastes, a review of characteristics for universal waste, waste oils, electronic waste, and metal waste, as well as addressing various updated requirements for their respective treatments and disposal is necessary. As to legal requirements, updates to liability and due diligence concerns, RCRA enforcement trends, the latest RCRA preferences for organization and management of compliance data is also necessary. As you might guess, different states have different requirements for ongoing certification. For example, in California, the requirement is 24 contact hours of a continuing education every 2 years. As in many states, these courses must be approved by REHS, Continuing Education Accreditation Agencies. So let's stop and have a word about REHS, Continuing Education Accreditation Agencies. The National Environmental Health Association, NEHA, was founded in 1937 by environmental health practitioners in order to establish standards for the profession. These standards are nowadays known as the Health Specialist Registered Sanitarian credential. Over time, the NEHA has established a number of specialty credentials that indicate competence in specialized areas, and many states require that continuing education coursework, as it has to do with hazardous waste disposal, must be provided by sources that are sanctioned by the NEHA for meeting their various standards. And we can help you find the best and most cost-effective solution. If you need training, contact your hazardous waste experts. You can find us online at hazardouswasteexperts.com. Thanks.